How do you stay ahead when you're building AI applications? Start with a head start. IBM's high-performance Granite models are optimized for enterprise tasks, like domain-specific processes and workflows. They're designed so you can do less training and more creating. Ready to hit the ground running? Get started now at ibm.com/granite. IBM. Let's create.
Hey, just want to let you know we've got a few more tickets left to our conversation tomorrow night with Yuval Noah Harari, historian and author of bestsellers like Sapiens and Homo Deus. He's going to be talking with us about his latest book, Nexus, A Brief History of Information Networks from the Stone Age to AI. So if you'll be in New York City, join us live tomorrow night, September 11th. Otherwise, tune in for the live stream. You can get more details and tickets by going to nextbigideaclub.com/events or click the link in the episode notes. Hope to see you there. And now on with the show.
LinkedIn presents.
Because extremists are so much more vocal, we can begin to think that they represent their entire party. And just as we tend to exaggerate the extremity of those on the other side, research indicates we also tend to minimize radicalism on our own side. And as a result, all of us feel much more polarized than we really are.
Hi, everyone. It's Tuesday. I'm your host, Michael Kovnat, and this is the Next Big Idea Daily, where we bring you relevant insights from the most important new nonfiction, summarized for you by the authors themselves. We're here to make you smarter in the time it takes for you to enjoy your morning coffee. Now, as we barrel headlong into the 2024 presidential election, all eyes are once again on social media. TikTok, X, Facebook, and the others, they've once again become a hotspot, a place where Americans and the occasional foreign bot like to vent their political spleens. But what exactly is it about these platforms that seems to be so distorting to our politics, even to our personalities? That's exactly what Chris Bale studies, and he wrote about it in the 2021 book, Breaking the Social Media Prism: How to Make Our Platforms Less Polarizing. Chris is a professor of sociology, political science, and public policy at Duke University, where he founded the Polarization Lab. The way out of our bind, Chris argues, is to better understand our own psychology and then to build new kinds of tech that truly support the kind of world we want to live in. Here's Chris.
Most of the common wisdom about how social media divides us is wrong. Echo chambers, foreign misinformation campaigns, algorithmic radicalization. Sound familiar? These are three of the most prominent ideas about how Facebook, Twitter, and other social media platforms are tearing us apart. Let's start with the echo chamber. The idea here is that these sites allow us to connect with people who already share our views and insulate ourselves from those who don't, allowing us to feel ever more certain that our side is right and the other side is wrong. Foreign misinformation campaigns. Russia and other countries have impersonated Americans and egged us on and made us even more mad at each other, making us just more polarized overall. Algorithmic radicalization. Social media companies, knowingly or unknowingly, have created algorithms that recommend increasingly extreme content, sending us down a rabbit hole and encouraging us to become extremists. Now, all three of these ideas are really powerful and very seductive, especially when they're articulated by the same people who built our platforms and kind of now regret their actions. But is there really any evidence for these claims? When I set out to do research about this in 2018, I discovered some startling things. We offered money to a large group of Republicans and Democrats to follow bots that exposed them to members of the other side, to kind of take them outside their echo chamber on Twitter for a month. Now, this was supposed to make them more moderate. Supposed to help them realize that there's two sides to every story, humanize the other side, and so on. Unfortunately, this isn't what we found. Nobody became more moderate, and many people actually became more extreme. How about those foreign misinformation campaigns? We were able to study those too. Though we know that foreign misinformation campaigns have spread far and wide, are they actually really changing anybody's mind? We were able to look at this by merging Twitter data with other data that we collected in the lab, and we were shocked when we discovered that there was almost no effect of exposure to a foreign misinformation campaign on people's beliefs about social policy issues or even their beliefs about the other party. Algorithms and radicalization. Now, this one is tricky to study, but the very best studies we have suggest that it might be an exceptionally rare phenomenon. It might be happening to less than 2% of people, or maybe even 1 out of 100,000 people. What's the upshot? Even if social media platforms enacted sweeping reforms to address echo chambers, foreign misinformation campaigns, and algorithms that radicalize us, this might not really tip the scale very much, and we would still have big problems. The problem is us. So in my book, you're going to meet a guy named Dave Kelly. Dave Kelly was a moderate Republican, concerned about climate change, not a big fan of President Trump. But after 1 month of participating in our study, where we paid Dave to follow a Twitter bot that exposed him to prominent Democrats, he became a lot more extreme. He began voicing conspiracy theories about climate change, for example, and even defending former President Trump. What happened? The common wisdom suggests that social media should enable a better competition of ideas. But what I discovered is that it actually creates a battle of identities. We think of social media as a place we go to get information or maybe entertain ourselves for a few minutes. But in this era of increasing social isolation, it's also becoming one of the main ways we understand each other and ourselves. You know, one of the weird things about us humans is that we care so much about our identities. Whether we know it or not, each of us present different identities to the world each day, observe how other people react, and cultivate the identities that make us feel socially accepted, that make us feel good about ourselves. But social media has changed all this. We have way more flexibility in how we present ourselves, and powerful new tools to observe what other people think of us. And though we use social media as if it were kind of a giant mirror to understand our place in the world, I think it's more like a prism that fuels status-seeking extremists, mutes moderates, and leaves all of us feeling much more polarized than we really are. The social media prism is normalizing extremism. Meet Jamie Laplace. He's a medical assistant who lives in one of the reddest parts of the United States. But Jamie is not a Republican. In fact, he has very strong liberal views that make him feel like a minority. He's lost friends from high school over arguments about President Trump, and his half-Republican, half-Democrat family can't even watch a football game together anymore. Jamie is a mild-mannered guy in real life and does not really talk very often about politics. But on social media, it's an entirely different story. Each night after work, he picks up his phone and starts trolling prominent conservatives late into the evening. He spends hours dueling with conservatives each night, even though he knows he's not changing anyone's mind. So why does he do it? Each time he goes on the offensive, Jamie's phone starts to light up with likes and new followers. And even though Jamie doesn't know these people at all, I think they're giving him something he really needs, a way to belong. And even though extremists like Jamie make up less than 6% of the population, give or take, a recent study indicates they're responsible for more than 3/4 of all posts about politics on Twitter. The social media prism is muting moderates. Okay, I know what you might be thinking right now. I'm not an extremist, and I certainly don't depend upon social media for my sense of self-worth. Turns out you are not alone. Most people aren't extremists. Most people are more like Sarah Rendon, a moderate conservative woman who you'll meet in the book. Sarah's husband is a responsible gun owner who visits a local shooting range every once in a while. And one day, Sarah was watching an argument unfold about Americans' rights to own guns, and she posted a relatively moderate message about her husband's right to own a firearm. Sarah was quickly inundated with insults and threats. One person even said that they hoped that her kids found her husband's gun and shot her. This experience was harrowing for Sarah, and it sent her running from social media. Facebook was already getting out of hand for her, and she had recently had to unfollow her liberal relatives from New York when she says they were becoming unhinged over the Supreme Court Justice Brett Kavanaugh's appointment. For moderates like Sarah, social media does not create a sense of status and self-worth. She has a happy life online with 2 great kids, she told me. Instead, Sarah has become all but invisible online because posting about her political views, even though they are very moderate, has become a liability. At the same time that social media amplifies status-seeking extremists, it's also muting moderates like Sarah, creating a phenomenon we social scientists call false polarization. Because extremists are so much more vocal, we can begin to think that they represent their entire party. And just as we tend to exaggerate the extremity of those on the other side, research indicates we also tend to minimize radicalism on our own side. And as a result, all of us feel much more polarized than we really are. I argue that social media has set this process of false polarization into hyperdrive. New technology to bridge partisan divides. So if social media is dividing us, if it's doing all this bad stuff, shouldn't we just stop using it? This has become a really fashionable idea, and large numbers of people have deleted their accounts. But research shows that most of the people who delete their accounts come back. And for the generation of young people who grew up with social media, deleting their accounts is pretty much unthinkable. Finally, the increasing social, cultural, and geographical distance between Democrats and Republicans means that social media may actually become one of the last places where we can have important conversations across party lines. Though it may be depressing to learn how much social media users are driving political polarization, it also means that we, the citizens of social media, have the power to chart a different course. Now, many Americans are simply not ready to begin the hard work of depolarization. A lot of people worry about false equivalencies or normalizing extremism on the other side. These are really important objections that we need to take seriously. But surveys indicate that a majority of Americans are deeply concerned about polarization and want to find political compromise. So what can these people do to make social media a less polarizing place? Well, I think there's 3 things that all of us can do. The first is to learn how to see the social media prism and understand our politics. The second is becoming more introspective about how our own behavior, or our lack of engagement on social media, contributes to the bigger picture. The third is learning how to identify people on the other side with whom you think you can agree to disagree at least, even if you aren't ready to change your mind. But I know that becoming more mindful of how we use social media is really easier said than done. And that's why I've spent several years creating a set of public tools that you can access on polarizationlab.com to try to make insights from my research into habits. There you'll find tools that help you differentiate extremists from moderates, apps that allow you to see where your posts fall on the ideological spectrum, and a bipartisanship leaderboard, which uses machine learning techniques to identify liberals who appeal to conservatives, and vice versa. You can even follow bots that retweet messages from these people to step outside your echo chamber in the right way. In the end, there is no single solution to political polarization. Though I think we need a bottom-up movement to fix this problem, I also think social media platforms can make a variety of changes that would create status for people who are reaching across party lines instead of taking each other down.
Okay, listeners, you should be able to get a copy of Breaking the Social Media Prism at your favorite bookstore. And if you got something out of this episode and you want to see more of what we have to offer, sign up for one of our newsletters using the links in the episode notes. Or go to nextbigideaclub.com and find out about our curated box subscription service. We'll send you the best new nonfiction books as selected by our curators Malcolm Gladwell, Adam Grant, Susan Cain, and Daniel Pink. That's nextbigideaclub.com and use the code DAILY for a special discount. I'm Michael Kovnat, and I'll see you tomorrow.